Michelle Green, thank you for coming on the Grapple Theory podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. It's the first time we visited Switzerland on the podcast, so that's always nice. It's lovely to get to new countries, which is lovely. I want to ask, sort of like what we were talking about a bit off camera before we started recording, about your 2022. It seems like 2022 is a real like breakout year for you. It seems like that's the year where you sort of made your name, not just sort of, you know, in mainland Europe, but across Europe and in America as well. It seemed like 2022 was that year, real like break through the glass ceiling year for you.
Yeah, it was a very big year for me. I started wrestling like in ring in November from 2020, like 2021, and then it was finally in 2022 when I got to be on OVW, to be on wXw. I trained in the US for quite a bit and managed to have great experience there. Lots of learnings and matches too, and grow as a performer, which as we know, practice makes better. So it was a great way to get that, and then coming back to Europe has been wonderful. So, and right now I'm back in Switzerland, so welcome to my home in that sense.
I was gonna say, like, because you went to America like basically first and then sort of came back to Europe. I mean, a lot of people do it the other way around. A lot of people sort of like stay home, hone their craft, like where they're based first, and then go out to America, especially like European and UK performers. So why for you was it important to go out to America first? Why did you decide to do it that way around?
So I started training in Switzerland in March 2019. And then COVID hit, so then I just started finding different venues to train and travel to Germany to train at wXw. And just everything kept closing down with the pandemic, as we know. So eventually I traveled to Mexico for a week and grew very fond of lucha libre there. It was just so enthralling to see the importance of wrestling in their traditions and in sports over there, because it's like top 5 sports there. I mean, Switzerland's probably not the top 500, you know? So then I, in December 2020, decided to quit my job to pursue wrestling without like having had a match or anything. And I first went to Mexico, stayed there 3 months and trained, and then eventually made my way up to Texas, and then finally to Tennessee to train with Dr. Tom Pritchard, who has trained many of the greats, as we know.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, to get trained by him, again, so, like, early on in your learning, like, to have someone like Tom Pritchard training you is, like, crazy cool. Like, did it feel like quite a steep learning curve to be sort of learning so much so quick?
I absolutely think so. Like, I had many great trainers that are icons. Like in Texas, I trained with Thunder Rosa, with Jazz, with Rodney Mack, also in Mexico with Skyden. And I just learned all these, like, top tier things, but I was struggling to tie them together. So then I really thought that I needed to learn the foundation and the basics, and Dr. Tom is the one who's written a book about it, right? So I didn't hesitate much and then traveled to Tennessee.
Yeah, and
it just really helped me tie everything together and kind of like also grow the confidence to start performing.
And you can sort of see that, like, in your wrestling style. You can see in terms of, like, all these different types of training and what you can do in the ring, that you have, like, this sort of very varied, like, background in learning for wrestling. Was that something that you always intended? Like, did you always intend to, like, I'll learn a bit of this and a bit of this and a bit of this style? Or was it sort of just a bit of almost like that's just how it panned out and now you know, like, a lot about all these different styles?
Well, really, I just went like in 2 and 3 month step at a time, and that's where the journey took me, yes.
And we talk about training. You talk about training in Europe as well. Someone specifically I want to talk to you who you sort of trained with, and, you know, I guess sort of you won your first bit of gold with was Sirius, run by obviously Jazzy Gabbert, who's a legend in European wrestling. Absolutely love her. She's fantastic. I mean, how big is it? I mean, obviously everyone winning their sort of first belt is big, and, like, it's always a big moment. But to have someone like Jazzy, who's such a legend of the European wrestling scene, be the one to sort of give you the belt, be the one to say, I have that faith in you. Like, how much does that mean?
Oh, it's been huge. Also, the match where I won it was in Switzerland, so it was like, I think my 60th match or so, but it was the first time in Switzerland. It was the first time my parents got to see me wrestle live, my hubby, my friends. So it was a packed venue, and they were, even though I was more of the dominant person in this, and they were all rooting for me, and they were really rowdy, and getting the opportunity to be the title holder for Sirius has been wonderful. We keep in touch a lot, Jazzy and I, and yes, she's definitely a great figure to learn from, just how much she's achieved, and she's also a person that's investing a lot, like in making wrestling bigger and better for everyone, and that is also a mission that I cherish a lot. To make women's wrestling the best and biggest it can be, and do my part to create the biggest platform for everyone. So I think there's definitely some shared values that we have.
But I think that a lot of sort of mainland European wrestling quite goes under the radar a little bit in terms of performers and the talent that's actually there. Talk to me about like the Swiss wrestling scene, because I saw you posted about winning the belt in the series in Switzerland, and you said there was a huge crowd there, which is great. Like, is that the norm, like in terms of Switzerland? Because it doesn't seem like it's like a big wrestling hub. Is that the case? Like,
I
is
always think it can be more. I also had the fortune to train with Oro Mensa, who's currently in NXT. He used to be a student at where I started out training here, and it's really been tremendous to see him make his way first to NXT UK and to the US. So not only do we have in Claudia Castagnoli someone to look up to, who's like out of our little country has made it, but we have even a more recent example in Oro Mensa, and it really shows you that things can be done.
Yeah, and what about like in terms of like going to shows in Switzerland? Is there like a lot of chance to go to wrestling in Switzerland? Are there a lot of shows on, or is it quite a rare thing?
The place where I started training before Academy Robot, so they have student shows about like every 2 or 3 months, I would say. There's shows in the Italian part of Switzerland, in the French part of Switzerland. So yes, there is, but definitely the size of production and the crowd that Sirius has created is something.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned like the different areas of Switzerland there. My uncle lives out in Switzerland, so I know it quite well.
Oh, nice.
So like yeah, he lives I think quite close to. Well, you're in Zurich, aren't you? So like he lives quite close to you. He lives in St. Gallen.
Yes, that's where I went to university. Actually.
Yeah, it's a lovely place. I love it there.
It's like so nice. 100,000 people living there.
Yeah, it's super nice. I really like it out there. But yeah, like he lives out there, and so like you get a lot of this sort of different culture mix in like different areas of Switzerland, and that leads me on to like the fact that I think most people think of as like the wow thing when they talk to you is the fact that you know 5 languages. So I mean, growing up in a country where language is so varied, and sort of that need to know different languages is quite needed just in general. Like, was that like how difficult is it to learn 5 languages? Is basically what I'm asking, because it seems like in my mind like it just seems very implausible.
Yes. So my dad worked as a diplomat, so I grew up internationally. Actually, I was born in Switzerland, but I've lived also in Germany, in Indonesia, in Spain, in Zimbabwe, and then obviously I've traveled to Mexico and the US as a wrestler. So I learned Swiss German, obviously it's my first language. German, and I learned French and Spanish. In Spanish, I mean, I lived there. Everybody wants to understand, right? So that you're very incentivized to learn. And then English just learned in school. And it's always been like the language of movies and show business, and so, of songs also, which I'm a big fan of singing as well. And yeah, that's really how that came to be. I'm currently actually learning Italian because my husband's Italian. So it's at least somewhat close to French and Spanish, but yeah, still some progress to be made. And it's just, I like connecting with people. I'm very outgoing, and I think it's exciting to do that in a language that is close to someone's heart. I think.
Yeah.
Like connection and understanding.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I know you've spoken about it before, but like that must really help with like promos in the ring when you can go to different countries, speak their language, and they can know what you're saying in a promo, and like you can really like get the feeling of what you're trying to say across to them properly.
I enjoy that, yes, for sure. However, because like I'm speaking to an international audience, I mostly lean towards English because obviously in Europe everybody's international, so you want everyone to understand, not just like parts of the people. So I think English is always like a common denominator there.
Yeah, was language something that was quite easy for you to pick up? Are you quite good with that, learning languages? Is that just something that sort of comes quite naturally to you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's crazy to me. Like, I'm all right with languages. I don't think I can speak anything else apart from English like fluently, but I can like half speak a few languages.
Okay,
So like,
so like you get the gist of it.
yeah, I'm better at like understanding than speaking, if that makes sense.
Well, that's helpful already.
I could be like a one-way translator, but not both, which I don't think is very helpful at all. But I mean, obviously that's a great asset to have in the ring, as well as like in terms of actually wrestling ability as well. I mean, it seems like we were saying before, it seems like you've got quite a good blend of like styles going on in the ring. Is that something that like coming through you're able to sort of again like sort of mix quite well between, in terms of if you want to have a certain type of match with someone and then like the next night you want to have a different type of match with someone else? Is that something that's quite easy to blend for you?
I just think it's exciting to try to work different kind of styles and try to pick them up. I also enjoy that at wXw, which is where I'm training, that sometimes we have more like lucha geared classes like by rotation, or then some more like old school, maybe you might say, which is what I, as well as Roberto Raisco, like being Dr. Tom people, so to say, like he always says, he's very inspired by Dr. Tom, and go towards. But overall, I think I just care the most like about storytelling, and that's what I'm working at being best at.
Yeah, sure. And we spoke about like big
And I'm
moments.
trying to make it make sense.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think it does. And like we talked about sort of like big moments career-wise. Obviously, winning the first belt is a big moment, but like getting on a show like wXw, like you say, where you trained before, and I think wXw, like if you sort of cut the UK aside, I think wXw is like the biggest European wrestling promotion. So how was it sort of like, again, debuting there and sort of, again, them having that faith in you to know like, oh, you're ready for this stage?
Yeah, so initially when I started watching wrestling in like 2015, then eventually I got like found a podcast and I found some friends, and we went to wXw events. Like I had been to, I think, maybe 5 of their bigger events, like Carrot and World Tag League, and of course Femme Fatale. So, and especially like seeing the women up close, it was really inspiring and really led me to believe, like thinking of it as a career option for me. And so getting the opportunity to be part of Femme Fatale this year really meant a lot. Said friends who used to go with me were also able to see me for the first time. I had some of my Swiss besties travel there. So it was very meaningful.
Nice.
And I really appreciate the trust that they've given me.
Yeah, that's lovely. And like you say, like the Femme Fatale tournament was crazy because, again, it seemed like there were a lot of like these up and coming stars like yourself, like Alice Inc. as well, who obviously won it. But like, and there was so much experience in there, like big names as well in that tournament. Like it must have been great to have your matches, but also watch those other matches and sort of like learn from all those different matches going on, those different styles, and the wrestlers who have like really been there and done it in their careers.
Yes, and also when I've been in the US, I did backstage for NWA, for Impact, and so of course I saw Killer Kelly then, and I saw Masha then, and then seeing them across the pond. Same with Mike Bailey, that has been everywhere, and it's always great to chat with. And so yeah, it's been a fantastic journey so far.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully more to come. And speaking of which, I mean, when are we going to get to see you over in the UK? Because you've been taking Europe by storm. What about us here in the UK? When are we going to get some Michelle Green?
I'm working on it. Hopefully soon. I would love to come.
Yeah, are you quite familiar with the British scene like that we have over here? And do you watch like any shows, any independent shows that we have over here?
Well, I definitely keep track. I've met some of the British talent, and when I wrestled in Austria. So I wrestled Ray Leverkusen there, which also you recently had on the podcast. Which Nina Samuels once on that show, Ryan O'Reilly, Darcy Stone, Livy Grace,
yeah,
is the full name. So of course I'm keeping track of what everyone's doing, and yeah, it's buzzing for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I also watched some matches. So I recently saw Danny Luna match, Alexis Falcon, previously Alex Morgan, of course. Yeah, I think it's very important to know what's going on in the wrestling world, like up to date, as well as in the female scene.
And from what you've seen and who you've met in terms of like who you haven't faced, are there any like particular names over here that you see and you're like, I'd have a good match with them, like you'd want to face them, like either they like sort of match your style or your personality?
Well, I think I would get on great with Nina Samuels. We did a little interview segment in Austria, which I think then was like, they put it in, like the release of the show was, how do you say, like Bard, like when for it.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun. Like she's great to have a back and forth banter.
Yeah, I think you guys would like definitely have some sort of like crazy cool energy in the ring. Like again, like you say, Nina is that very like almost like antagonistic character where she can really like rile you up, and I think that'd be quite good to like see that dynamic.
Yeah, I think it would be a great experience to face her and any of the women that I previously mentioned, of course. Also, Lizzie Evo, I think I recently saw. And yeah, it's an exciting scene in European wrestling right now.
No, that's cool. It really is. And like, does that again like sort of give you the idea of like how far you've come in such a short time? Because like you say, like, you know, sort of back end of 2021 was when you sort of really like started, you know, in wrestling and then getting noticed in 2022. But you've done so much in that like sort of 12, 15 months. Do you sometimes like look back on that and you're like, oh, like I've achieved a lot in a very short space of time?
Oh yeah, it's been very intense, but also like when you're so focused on a goal, at times you're just very like short-sighted of like what the next step is, what is the next step. But now recently when Pro Wrestling Illustrated featured me, I mean that was just my mind was blown, right? So I feel incredibly honored when they would feature me as one to watch.
Yeah, I was gonna say that like that's got to be another like crazy thing. Again, just in terms of like, are you able to sort of sit back and appreciate those moments as they come? Like in terms of, again, PWI writing about you like is huge. Are you able to like sit back and be like, oh, that's like crazy big, like PWI know who I am? Is that a weird feeling?
Of course, like when they reached out to me, I was like, oh, that is exciting. And then obviously I knew the article was coming out, but then like seeing it online and like, because obviously I've read PWI, especially always the rankings, because now I go and Google everyone and try to find out more about them and read the magazine, and to be featured in it has been a blessing.
And in terms of wrestling, like you say, you've wrestled like basically, you know, most of the world at this point, you know, like, you know, obviously it'd be great to see like out in Japan or something like that. You've not been to that area yet, but in terms of America and Mexico and mainland Europe, obviously we want to see you in the UK as well. But again, like you say, growing up as the daughter of a diplomat and having all that travel as well, is that something that like instilled that love of travel, that ease of traveling like within you? Because obviously travel is a huge part of wrestling, but obviously if you enjoy traveling, it makes it a whole lot easier.
I think definitely growing me like the skill of being adaptable and becoming flexible. Also, I think like if 5 years ago we would have talked that I would have been very stuck to like Swiss ways, everything punctual, you need to plan everything 6 months ahead, and that is really not how the entertainment industry works at all. And yeah, but it definitely helps with the traveling and meeting people, because none of this you can do alone. Like you always got to depend on somebody and put their trust in you. And you like, I thanked all my coaches a billion times over, and I'll continue to do so, because without them and their support and their teachings, as well as the ones from my loved ones, I wouldn't be where I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, let's sort of learn a little bit more about sort of like you behind the character. I mean, obviously, like you say, you live in Switzerland at the minute, but grew up again, like, you know, almost like again globally. Why was like Switzerland sort of the place you wanted to return to in terms of like a home base? Like, obviously that clearly feels like home for you, but having lived in so many different places, what is it about Switzerland that sort of keeps you stuck, like living there?
Well, my loved ones, first and foremost, and we have an amazing quality of living here, which it feels safe and secure, and yeah.
It is very nice. It is lovely in Switzerland. I wouldn't mind living in Switzerland.
Personally, I also really like the beach and warm weather, so I don't have those, but yeah.
No, not the beach. No, not the beach, but they have
nice combination.
Yeah, that's always nice. That's always nice. I mean, like again, like in terms of beaches, I don't know if it counts as a beach, but like again, where my uncle lives, like he lives like near St Gallen. He
We have
lives
a
in,
lot of lakes.
yeah,
Yes.
he lives in like Golda, and there's like the lake right on the village there, and like we go there a lot, and like that's crazy. Like that's crazy beautiful. Like it's amazing. But
Yeah, we just grow up very spoiled, you know. So
it's not a bad life. It's not a bad life. But what about in terms of, you mentioned obviously before, like sort of quitting your job to pursue wrestling full time.
I lost you there for a bit. Could you
Oh,
repeat your
sorry.
question?
Yeah, sure, sure. You mentioned talking about like quitting your job to pursue wrestling full time, and obviously that's like a huge step for anyone to take. Like, how long was that process of like considering it in terms of like the first thought of being like, I wonder if I could do this, to actually making that decision of like, yeah, I'm gonna quit my job and like travel the world and wrestle.
It was just like a passion that grew inside me. Like in German, we actually, the word for passion is called Leidenschaft, and it means like create pain. It's like it's a two-syllable word. So it's both passion, but passion can also burn. But so I would say it was like a fire that grew inside me. Of course, it's to the best of your ability, it can be a rational decision, but in the end, it's super emotional because probably no clear-minded person decides to pursue wrestling. I think we're all a bit crazy in different degrees here, and but yes, it was just something where I felt like it seemed like the world was ending, and I was like, well, what the hell? I'm just gonna take my savings and invest in what makes me happy and what excites me, and go with my gut and my heart feeling, and pursue this and see where it takes me.
I was going to say, because as well, like as well as doing that, as well as quitting your job to pursue wrestling, doing it during the pandemic seems even wilder. Like that seems just like a crazy move. Like, so like,
Yeah, here we are. So, yeah.
well, I don't want to say in terms of like the word regret, because obviously you're doing great now, and it's all like seems to have worked out, which is brilliant. You're having a great career so far. But was there ever a point when, like, you know, maybe early on you looked at it and you were like, have I made the right move here? Was this the right choice? Or did it always seem like it was the right thing to do?
I think I'm very driven, so in moments where I thought things weren't working, I just tried to find another way. So, like, I'd like to say that in Mexico, what I learned the most is grit. Because they're very intense and, like, physical trainings. And it just, in the end, I had the realization for me that I prefer, like, the more character American kind of wrestling. And so then eventually I went to Texas. And at the time, Thunder Rosa had a big group of women training there together, like Maddie Rankowski, Jasmine Allure, and it was really cool to have like this community of women training together, also with jazz there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really cool as well in terms of, again, like we spoke about, like how much you've already experienced in wrestling. Obviously we spoke about like winning the gold at Sirius and like working for wXw and OVW and all that sort of stuff like that you've already achieved. In terms of, again, like, so you've quit your job, you're going out to pursue wrestling, you're training. What was the moment for you where you were like, this was the right decision? The moment that like you were like, this has paid off because I've made it to this point. What was that first like moment for you?
I got to debut on OVW TV, like US national TV, in March of 2022. And just as soon as I started having matches, you know, I started writing everyone, like all these kind of things. And when they called me back to come over, I was still very nervous, and I had previously heard this story of a girl who went and like she messed it up, and then they didn't call her back, so then you're more like, and when it went well and they commended me and wanted to have me back, that was really exciting. And I think the other key moment for me was performing at Mission Pro Wrestling, because that was also one of my goals. And then wrestling Jasmine Allure, having like a match of the night caliber kind of match, and having Thunder Rosa come to the ring and like praise me. It was just a very full circle moment.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely. That's lovely to hear. That's amazing. And we've got a couple of like sort of fun features here on the show where we're going to get to know like a little bit more about you and sort of like your love of wrestling, but also a bit more about you personally as well. So this first segment is called the Anatomy of a Pro Wrestler.
I'm excited and scared. So
It's nothing too difficult, I promise. It's nothing too difficult. This one's called Anatomy of a Pro Wrestler, and it's sort of just it's almost like what makes you tick kind of thing. So we're going to get to learn a little bit more about you. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Yeah, I think they're all pretty positive ones. There'll all be ones that like you'll like answering.
Okay,
I hope. Yeah, it's nothing too bad. It's nothing too bad. So I'll lay out some questions for you, and you let me know what comes to mind. Yeah. Well, we'll see. If there's any you think are bad, then let me know. But the first one is my favorite pre-show meal. What do you like to have like before your match or before your show?
I don't eat that much, like on the show day. But I like skill or like protein puddings, this kind of stuff. A bit of a sweet tooth there.
Yeah, quick energy burst sort of thing. Nice. On the opposite end is my favourite post-pinfall pig out. What do you like after a show when the show's finished?
I'm a sucker for donuts.
Nice.
Like just with some cinnamon sugar on top. And actually in Berlin, when I've been at GWF, my friends, she's gotten them sometimes for me. And yeah, I like them a lot. Or then the next day at the main station, there's also a good donut store.
Nice.
And in the US, I used to go to this one that's called Duck Donuts, and then you go, like, it would just be my chia meal, and then make them, like, straight away, and they're, like, really warm.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. That's a good
like
choice. The final,
or
like...
ice cream, but usually that's not available. So
No, and...
Italian gelato, but usually it's not available.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? That's not. It's also not as portable, really. Like donuts, you can have like if
That
you need
is
to get.
true,
Yeah. The final sort of like food-based one is like the classic. What would your like death row meal be? What would your last meal be?
Well, I hope I don't end up on death row.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. Hopefully not.
I wouldn't see why. But I could just say, like, I think I'll just tell you about, like, my favorite kinds of meals. So we covered gelato, then Italian food I love a lot. So I'm very fortunate that my hubby's from mom and from Italy. The food's great.
Nice.
And
Does he do a lot of cooking?
like
Does he cook for you?
Pasta. I like American barbecue, like brisket, and then I like the tacos it makes.
Nice. It'd be a whole platter. It'd be great.
I mean, who cares, right? I mean, you're done for. So.
Yeah, you can just eat whatever. It doesn't really matter at that point. Nice. The next one is the song that gets me the most hyped.
I like Can't Hold Us by Macklemore.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, I'm still like on the Rihanna glow trip from the Super Bowl.
That was a great performance. That was pretty iconic.
It was so moving. I was like, I was like, that's my girl. I was so proud of her. I'm like, yeah, go get it. It was so moving. It was really cool.
It was great. And then, like, as well, like, I didn't clock. My partner's the one that clocked first. She was like, is she pregnant? I was like, oh my God, she might be pregnant. And, like, to do the Super Bowl halftime.
Somebody told me and they were like, I wasn't sure. And I'm like, what do you mean you wasn't sure? She's got, like, baby bump. But so I like all of the lines. And then the Better Have My Money one. Even though I personally don't care that much for songs that have, like, explicit cursing in them. Yeah.
That's fair enough. No, that's fair enough. But again, like, yeah.
Sometimes some country, but more like for driving back or car karaoke.
Nice. Yeah. A bit of sing-along stuff. Like that. The next one is the movie that I show the locker room. So I always say, like, it doesn't have to be, like, your favourite movie, but the movie you think everyone should see, like, at some point.
Trying to, like... And I'm not sure I have, like, the one movie that I go to.
Okay.
I like musical movies, but I'm not, like, I don't think a specific one that I want to see.
No, that's fair enough. Mine? What's mine?
Yeah.
I've never been asked it. No one's ever asked me. I always...
Yeah, you see now it ain't that easy.
Yeah. I know what my favourite movies are, but they're not the ones that I think people should see, because my answer would be Star Wars, but everyone, like, either you've seen Star Wars at this point, or you haven't, and it means you don't want to, because that's why you haven't seen it. I'd say the movie that everyone should see is maybe something like Blades of Glory. Do you know that with Will Ferrell?
No, but I guess it's the one where he's ice skating.
Yeah, it's a comedy one, yeah. And he's like an ice skater, and it's very weird. But like, I think everyone I don't think it's a great movie, but I think it's very funny.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's weird. No one's ever turned it on me and asked me my own questions before. That was intense. That was weird. I know how you feel now. I know how it feels to be on the other end of it.
Yeah.
The next one is it's a bit of a throwback because it's your first job.
Probably like babysitter or something like that.
Yeah. That's like a fairly standard first job.
Yeah, I think so.
That's fair enough. Sort of like when you're younger and you do it to just make a little bit of extra money, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. The next one's a little deep. It's the only time we get a little bit deep on the show because it's my greatest fear.
I'm a people's person, so loneliness would be sad.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Or unhappiness also, that just includes everything. So it's like when you have 3 wishes, I'm just like, be happy. Like I just need one, and then that will sort itself out.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. The next one's favourite animal.
Used to be cat, but I also like dogs.
Yeah?
Either. And I also quite like tigers for the reason being that like when I was training in Mexico and it was tough, I used to always tell myself like, you're just a little baby tiger in a group full of like dogs, and but eventually they will see that yes, you're different, but once you're bigger, then they will see what you truly are. So I kept that going to motivate myself.
I like that. So where are you now in that? Like, how do you see yourself now? Do you see yourself as the tiger now, like the full tiger who everyone's like, oh, hell, yeah.
Maybe like a teenage tiger.
Nearly there, getting there. I like it.
No, I know I'm still like, there's still so many things to learn and things to grow. So, yeah.
Awesome. Brilliant. The next one is a wrestling one. It's my favourite match stipulation. Like, what's your favourite type of wrestling match? Like, in terms of, like, singles or triple threat? Yeah, just singles. Classic.
1-on-1 women's match.
Yeah?
Yes.
No extra, like, no anything else? No, like, extra, like, stipulation to it or anything?
No, I like it. Just keep it simple and straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, title match would be nice.
They're always better, aren't they? That's always nice. I mean, like, away from these questions, again, like, talking about that sort of, like, validation that comes with winning a title belt. Like, it seems like, how does that feel like internally when, like, someone like Jazzy as well, like, a promoter has said to you, like, basically, because obviously wrestling is all subjective, right? It's all, like, the promoter wants you to be in that position. So when someone like Jazzy or any promoter says to you, like, oh, I want you to be in, like, this title match or win this title, be in this position, like, that must be a really rewarding feeling in yourself that, like, oh, I'm doing something right because these people are seeing something in me that they want me in these positions.
I'm always, like, excited to perform, and whatever the story demands, I will complete it to the best of my abilities. And, I'm just happy to help and to put on a great show. Nice.
Only a couple left on this feature. The next one's my favourite place in the world.
Next to my man.
Anywhere, wherever that is.
Yes.
Love that. I love that.
Preferably on a beach.
Yeah. Well, that's the next question. The next question is my dream holiday destination.
Somewhere warm with the beach.
Yeah. And sun as well. It's got to be somewhere like nice and sunny, right on the beach.
Yes,
lovely.
Like warm also, yeah.
Yeah, like it. I like it. I like how you're not picky with it as well. Like just anywhere, like beach, sun. That's all you need. Like.
I mean, like safe environment and stuff.
Yeah. Well, Michelle Green, thank you so much for coming on the Grapple Theory podcast. It's been such a pleasure having you here. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you. It was very entertaining. It flew by at the time.
Good. I'm glad. That means a lot. We always end our show by giving our guest one final bit of promo time. So whether it's out in Europe or hopefully this year, hopefully at some point over in the UK we'll be able to see you, or out in America or Mexico or anywhere you're wrestling, why is Michelle Green going to steal the show?
Well, the money-making machine, Michelle Green, is always going to be the star of the show in any 5 languages that I speak. And as you know, I've traveled internationally and there's more to come. So it would be exciting if your listeners and viewers could follow me at I'm Michelle Green online on all social media platforms. They can also check out my merchandise shop because that's a wise investment. It's not going to get any cheaper than it is today. Because the stock's just going to go up because I'm Michelle Green. And to me, every day is payday.